Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am genuinely thrilled you're joining us today because we're about to peel back the layers on something really fundamental and honestly quite fascinating about any successful business, how they inspire their people. We're diving deep into motivation at work. It's a crucial piece of the puzzle. Specifically, it's part 3 from Unit 1 People in Business, Chapter 22, Methods of Motivation at Work. Think of this deep dive as, well, equipping you with a kind of master key, giving you that foundational understanding of all the different tools and strategies businesses use to really ignite that spark in their employees, whether it's through, tangible financial incentives or maybe those powerful non-financial approaches. Getting this right is sort of the secret sauce for productivity, for innovation. And for you, our dedicated listener, especially if you're navigating the IGCSE business exam, this isn't just theory, is it? This knowledge is your bedrock. It's what you need for analyzing real-world case studies, for truly dissecting why some businesses soar and others stumble. It's all about building that crucial foundation.
Oh, and before we jump in, for even more resources to turbocharge your understanding, you can always check out www.igcc-business.weebly.com. Right then, let's unlock this mystery. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. When we talk about motivation in a business context, why is it such a big deal, such a monumental thing? I mean, isn't it really just about, paying people enough money to show up, do their job, and then go home? Surely, money is the ultimate driver for everyone.
That's a really common question, and it gets right to the heart of business psychology. But it's often, a bit of an oversimplification, even if it seems logical at first. See, the fundamental importance of employee motivation. It stretches far, far beyond just compliance, just getting people to clock in and out. We're talking about the engine that drives genuine productivity. A motivated workforce doesn't just tick boxes. They find better ways to do things. They foster innovation, often from the ground up. You also see a significant drop in absenteeism. Why? Because people want to be there. It's not just an obligation. The quality of work tends to improve drastically, too. And, this is absolutely crucial, it allows businesses to retain valuable talent. Think about the cost and disruption of constantly having to recruit and train new people. Motivation helps avoid that revolving door.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not just about doing the bare minimum then.
Exactly. Imagine a team where everyone's just going through the motions. It's stagnant, right? Uninspired. Now, picture the alternative. Employees who are intrinsically motivated. They're engaged, invested, maybe even passionate about what they do. They become more efficient, definitely more committed, and they consistently contribute positively to the business's bottom line, its profitability, its competitive edge. Think about, say, a restaurant, one with genuinely happy, engaged staff versus one where the servers are clearly bored and disengaged.
Oh, yeah, you can feel the difference immediately.
You really can.
Yeah.
And that difference impacts the customer experience, repeat business, and ultimately the revenue. Conversely, an unmotivated workforce, that's a huge liability. You're looking at potentially very high staff turnover. And that's not just recruitment costs, it's losing valuable knowledge, experience. You often see poor quality work, which damages reputation, missed deadlines, and just a general low morale that can honestly spread like a virus, undermining the whole team, the whole business. So yes, money is a factor, a very important one, no doubt, but it's just one piece of a much bigger, more intricate puzzle. Businesses that really get it right, they understand they need a multifaceted approach, not just relying on the paycheck.
That really paints a clearer picture. It's about making people want to excel, not just preventing them from leaving. But okay, let's not ignore the money completely. It's still a big part of it. So this is where it gets really interesting, I think. What are the main financial tools businesses actually use? What's in that traditional toolkit they reach for?
Absolutely. Financial rewards are often the first thing people think of, and often the first thing businesses try, because they're direct payments or benefits with a clear monetary value. They seem like the most straightforward way to influence behavior. But, as we'll see, straightforward doesn't always mean simple to implement well, or even the most effective in every situation. So, the first and probably most common financial method is time rates. This usually takes the form of a salary or a basic wage. Essentially, it's a fixed payment based purely on the time an employee spends at work. Could be an hourly rate, for someone working in a cafe, a weekly wage for someone on a production line. Or, in the case of a salary, it's typically a fixed yearly amount, often for non-manual or professional roles. And the idea with salaried workers, as the source material points out, is that they'll generally work the hours needed to get the job done right, rather than being rigidly tied to, say, 9 to 5.
Okay, so fixed pay for time spent. When does that work best then? What kind of jobs?
Right. Well, it's ideal for jobs where measuring the actual output is really difficult, maybe even impossible in purely quantitative terms. Think about a teacher. How do you measure their output? Number of lessons taught. It doesn't capture the real goal, which is student learning development. That's complex, long-term stuff.
Yeah, you can't really count learning units per hour.
Exactly. Or a research scientist, a hotel receptionist dealing with complex guest needs, an HR manager developing strategies. In these roles, what's paramount is care, accuracy, attention to detail, not sheer speed or volume. You definitely don't want a researcher rushing experiments or a receptionist hurrying someone off the phone.
Makes sense. So what are the upsides and downsides of paying people this way?
Good question. From the employee's view, the big advantage is stability, a predictable income. That offers significant financial security, peace of mind.
Which is huge for most people.
Absolutely. And for the employer, it encourages careful, accurate work because there's no financial pressure to rush to produce more. The pay is the same. Plus, it's generally simple to calculate and administer. Payroll is relatively straightforward.
Okay, but what's the catch? There must be drawbacks.
Oh, definitely. A major criticism is that productivity often isn't directly rewarded. So a highly productive teacher might earn exactly the same as a less effective one working the same hours. That can feel unfair, lead to feeling undervalued.
I can see that causing resentment.
It can. And it might lead to inefficiency or maybe a lack of urgency, especially if workers aren't closely supervised. If there's no direct financial incentive to produce more within their set time, the motivation might dip. It could become a system where, good enough becomes the standard rather than striving for excellence. The source specifically notes this lack of reward for productivity as a problem.
Right, so if time rates don't directly reward output, what's the sort of polar opposite, the method where output is absolutely everything?
That would be piece rates. In many ways, it's the direct flip side. This is a payment method linked directly and solely to the number of units or pieces of output produced by an employee. The source defines it really clearly. Payment received for every unit of output produced. Simple as that.
Okay, so pay per item, essentially. Where would you use that?
It's tailor-made for jobs where output is easily countable, easily quantifiable, and where the main business goal is maximizing volume. Think of a factory floor, workers assembling a specific component. Or, the example from our source, grape pickers earning, say, 50 cents per kilogram picked.
Right, very direct link. Pick more grapes, earn more money.
Precisely. Their earnings are directly, immediately, transparently tied to how much they physically produce.
So the advantages seem obvious. Big incentive for high productivity.
Absolutely. It's a very powerful incentive. Employees see a direct correlation between their effort and their earnings, which can be highly motivating for some. It can also reduce the need for close supervision. Why? Because workers are inherently self-motivated to produce more to earn more. And from the business side, you're essentially paying for results, for tangible output, not just for someone being present.
But I sense a but coming. What are the dangers?
There are significant ones, and they're often highlighted in business studies. A major risk is quality. Quality can plummet if workers rush to produce more pieces.
Yeah, sacrificing quality for quantity.
Exactly. Think of poorly made goods rushed off an assembly line. It can also, worryingly, encourage dangerous or unsafe working practices if speed becomes the absolute priority over safety.
That's a serious concern.
It is. Our source explicitly flags this risk. Quality may suffer if people work too fast, and workers might use dangerous practices. Also, this method just doesn't work for jobs where output isn't easily measured. Creative roles, strategic thinking, most service jobs where interaction quality matters, and for the employees themselves, it can mean very unstable income, big fluctuations depending on production levels, material availability, creating financial insecurity. Historically, it also led to issues like rate busting, where employers would cut the rate per piece if workers got too good, which ironically killed motivation. It's a high reward system, but definitely high risk too.
So if I'm trying to visualize this, time rates are about valuing care, maybe quality, consistent presence, especially when output is hard to count. Piece rates scream volume, speed, where output is just a simple number. They feel like they belong in totally different work environments. Is that about right?
That's a perfect way to put it. You've nailed the philosophical divide. Time rates value the professional's time, their careful work in roles where rushing is bad or the product isn't tangible, like that legal assistant checking documents meticulously. Piece rates are for when quantity is the main goal, and every unit is easily counted, like packing boxes or harvesting crops. The choice really hinges on the nature of the job and what the business truly values most in that specific role.
Okay, crystal clear. Now, what about other financial methods? You hear a lot about pay linked to performance targets these days.
Yes, that brings us to performance-related pay, often shortened to PRP. This is a system where pay increases, or sometimes bonuses, are directly tied to achieving specific performance targets. These targets are often set and reviewed through a formal appraisal system, maybe annually. And the source highlights something key here. PRP is often designed specifically to reward workers whose output is difficult to measure in simple units.
Ah, so it's trying to bridge that gap for roles where piece rates don't fit.
Exactly. It's often used for non-manual workers, managers, professionals, roles where output is more complex and needs qualitative goals, not just quantity. Think of a marketing manager whose performance might be linked to hitting targets for brand awareness or lead generation, or a project manager linked to delivering a project on time and within budget.
So how does it actually work in practice?
Typically, it involves regular discussions, often an annual appraisal meeting. The manager and employee discuss progress against the targets set previously. They assess whether those targets have been met, partially met, or exceeded, and then they set new targets for the next period. The pay increase, or maybe a performance bonus, is then determined based on that assessment.
Sounds logical. What are the benefits?
Well, the main benefit is that it directly links individual performance to reward. That can be a powerful motivator for people to achieve specific, agreed-upon goals. It can also lead to clearer objectives for employees. Everyone knows what they're aiming for. And for the business, it helps align individual efforts with the company's broader strategic goals. It focuses everyone on what matters most. Theoretically, it creates a meritocracy where top performers get rewarded.
But I imagine it's not all smooth sailing. What are the difficulties?
Definitely not. PRP systems can be really challenging to implement well. A big issue is subjectivity. Appraisals can feel unfair, especially if the manager doing the assessing is seen as biased or inconsistent. This can breed resentment and kill morale.
Yeah, the my manager doesn't like me problem.
Precisely. And setting good targets is hard. They need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound smart targets. But for complex roles, how do you truly measure things like improved team collaboration or increased creativity? It's tough. Targets might end up being too easy or impossibly hard. It can also cause conflict. If people are competing for limited pay rises or bonuses, it can create friction between colleagues or even departments. Our source points this out, saying some workers feel that it is unfair because appraisers may be inconsistent. And sometimes the financial incentives may not be high enough to make the whole process feel worthwhile or overcome the perceived unfairness.
And what if things outside the employee's control affect their results, like a sudden market change?
That's another major challenge. An employee's performance can be hit by external factors, market conditions, resource cuts, even the performance of other team members they rely on. So judging them purely individually based on results can feel unjust and be very demotivating. PRP sounds great in theory, but implementation is key, and it's often flawed.
It really does sound like a potential minefield if not handled carefully.
Okay, what about those extra payments? The ones that aren't part of the regular salary or wage, like a Christmas bonus or something.
Spot on. That brings us to bonus payments. A bonus is basically an additional payment, often a lump sum, given on top of regular pay. It might be for reaching specific targets, as a reward for loyalty over time, or maybe based on the overall company's performance that year. It's absolutely crucial, as you said, that it's in addition to the basic wage or salary, it's the extra bit. The did you know box in our source even mentions loyalty bonuses used specifically to help keep staff. That's a perfect example.
Okay, so it's extra cash for hitting goals or sticking around. Who gets these? They're incredibly versatile, actually. Bonuses can be used for individuals, for whole teams, even company-wide. So you might have a machinist getting a bonus for hitting a production target for the week. Or maybe an entire factory floor gets a collective bonus if they meet the plant's sales target for the quarter. Outside of production, you might see a customer service team getting a bonus if they achieve a really high customer satisfaction score for the month.
Seems like a good way to focus effort on specific goals. What are the main advantages?
They can be a very strong short-term motivator, really effective for getting people focused on hitting specific, measurable goals. They're also flexible. You can tie them to all sorts of targets: production, quality, sales, safety, staff retention, you name it. And if they're tied to team or company performance, they can create a real sense of shared success, encouraging people to work together.
Okay, but what are the downsides? Does it always work?
Not always. One risk is that they can create a very short-term focus. People might prioritize hitting that immediate bonus target, perhaps at the expense of longer-term goals, or even quality if they cut corners.
Right. Hitting the number becomes the only thing that matters.
Exactly. They can also cause resentment if some people get bonuses and others don't, especially if the reasons aren't crystal clear or seem unfair. Perceptions of favoritism can creep in. And here's a critical point. If the targets are set too low or bonuses become too regular, they can stop being motivators. They become expected. They shift from being a reward to just part of the expected compensation package. Then they become what Herzberg called a hygiene factor. Their absence causes dissatisfaction, but their presence doesn't really inspire extra effort. The motivational magic wears off.
That's a great point. The expected bonus just becomes part of the furniture. Okay, so bonuses are for hitting specific targets. How is that really different from something like commission? I always associate commission with sales roles. They both sound like extra money for doing well.
That's an excellent distinction to draw out because they are often confused but serve quite different functions. Commission is specifically a payment based on a percentage of the sales value generated by an employee. So it's a direct cut, a slice of the revenue that they personally bring into the company. The link is directly proportional. Sell more value, earn more commission.
Okay, so purely based on the value of what you sell.
Precisely. And because of that, commission is used almost exclusively for sales staff. Roles where individual sales performance is directly measurable and is a key direct driver of revenue for the business. Our source gives the example of a salesperson for GVS Life Assurance earning commission on the insurance policies they sell. The more policies they sell, and especially the higher the value of those policies, the more commission they earn. In theory, there's often no upper limit based on their effort and success.
Sounds like a powerful motivator for salespeople then.
Extremely powerful in those roles, yes. Earnings are directly tied to sales success, which strongly encourages proactive selling, hitting the phones, engaging with customers. From the business side, it's attractive because you only pay commission when a sale is actually made. It helps control fixed labor costs you're paying for results.
But surely there are downsides to that kind of pressure.
Oh, absolutely. For the employee, it can mean very unstable and unpredictable income. If sales are slow due to market conditions, which might be totally outside their control, their income can drop dramatically. That creates stress.
Yeah, that feast or famine cycle.
Exactly. It can also, unfortunately, incentivize high-pressure sales tactics, maybe even unethical ones. If the only goal is closing the deal to get the commission, sometimes long-term customer satisfaction or building trust gets overlooked.
Which can damage the company's reputation long-term.
Definitely. And it can foster a super competitive environment among the sales team. Now, sometimes that competition is healthy, spurs everyone on. Other times, it can become toxic, undermining teamwork.
So let's nail this down. The key difference between a bonus and commission is...
Okay, the key distinction. A bonus is usually a fixed or variable amount paid for reaching a specific target, or maybe for loyalty. That target might be sales-related, but it could also be production, quality, safety, anything measurable. It's often a one-off or periodic payment. Think Christmas bonus, project completion bonus. Commission, on the other hand, is always a percentage of the actual sales value achieved by the individual. It's directly proportional to the revenue they generate. So, you might give a bonus to a factory team for hitting a monthly production quota. That's the target. But you give commission to a car salesperson based on the value of the cars they sell. That's the percentage of revenue. Bonuses mark milestones, commission rewards direct revenue generation.
Got it. Target versus percentage of revenue. That's much clearer. Now, what about something like getting promoted? That definitely involves more money usually, but it feels like it's about more than just cash. Seems like a really powerful long-term incentive.
You're absolutely right to flag that. Promotion is a unique and often profoundly powerful motivator. Why? Because it represents advancement, moving up to a higher position within the company. And that almost always comes with increased responsibility, yes, higher pay, but also, importantly, improved status, recognition, maybe more autonomy. The motivational pull here is strong because it taps into deeper desires for career development, for learning new skills, for gaining more authority and influence. Our source even specifically mentions Herzberg's view here. He saw promotion as a true motivator, not just a hygiene factor, but something that actively satisfies and inspires people.
So it hits those higher level needs, not just basic security. What are the main benefits for the business and the employee?
For the employee, it's a clear path for growth, recognition for their efforts, a chance to develop. It's a powerful long-term goal. For the business, the advantages are numerous. It's a great way to retain talent people see a future for themselves. It boosts loyalty and commitment. It also facilitates internal recruitment. Promoting from within is often cheaper and faster than hiring externally. Plus, you're promoting someone who already knows the company culture, the systems.
Saves on onboarding time, too.
Exactly. It provides that clear career ladder, encouraging everyone to strive for higher performance, not just for today, but for their future within the company. It also helps build institutional knowledge at higher levels.
Sounds great, but surely not everyone can get promoted. What are the drawbacks?
That's the main inherent challenge. Opportunities for promotion are, by definition, limited. There are fewer positions higher up, so inevitably not everyone who wants a promotion, or maybe even deserves one, will get it. This can lead to disappointment, demotivation, feeling stuck or overlooked.
Yeah, hitting a ceiling.
Right. It can also create intense competition, which, as we said with commission, can sometimes turn unhealthy or create conflict among colleagues vying for the same spot. And of course, when someone is promoted, they often need significant training and support to succeed in their new, more demanding role. That costs time and money. Plus, there's the classic Peter Principle risk, promoting someone who was excellent at their technical job into a management role they're just not suited for. You lose a good worker and gain a bad manager.
That's a common trap. Okay, one last financial-ish area. What about all those extra things companies offer, like company cars or health insurance? The perks.
Yes, the fringe benefits, or perks as they're often called. These are essentially non-wage benefits provided to employees in addition to their normal salary or wage. Our source offers an interesting insight here, suggesting they often help satisfy Maslow's physiological needs, those fundamental requirements like health, security, perhaps even things like subsidized food.
So what kind of things count as fringe benefits?
Oh, the list is incredibly varied and depends hugely on the company and industry. The source lists things like free counseling services, discounts on the company's own products, subsidized meals in a canteen, a company car, contributions to an employee pension plan, free private health insurance. The Santiago de Senio example in the source gives great real-world examples. They had an attractive pension scheme, a free canteen, even free bicycles for cycling to work, nice environmental perk there, plus in-house childcare and health insurance.
Wow, some of those sound really valuable.
It can be. Other common examples might include gym memberships, help with tuition fees, flexible working hours, although that one kind of bridges into non-financial methods, maybe even things like enhanced parental leave or pet insurance these days.
So what's the appeal for the business? Why offer these instead of just more salary?
Several reasons. Often it can actually be more cost-effective for the business. The source points this out. It may be cheaper to give employees US $2,000 of fringe benefits than US $2,000 in cash.
How'd that work?
It could be due to tax advantages for certain benefits, or the company getting bulk discounts on things like health insurance or gym memberships. Also, the perceived value to the employee might be higher than the actual cost to the employer. Beyond cost, good benefits can significantly improve staff health and well-being. Think health insurance, mental health support, wellness programs. This can reduce absenteeism and increase productivity. They are also a really powerful tool for recruitment and retention. A great benefits package can make a company stand out, make it a much more attractive place to work, especially for high-quality candidates.
The golden handcuffs idea makes it harder to leave.
To some extent, yes. They provide a sense of security and care for employees and their families, which fosters loyalty. They can certainly act as an attractor and a retainer, especially for more senior staff where benefits packages often become more substantial.
But you mentioned Herzberg earlier. Didn't he have a different view on benefits?
He did, and it's a crucial counterpoint. Herzberg famously argued that most fringe benefits fall into the category of hygiene factors, not true motivators. Remember the analogy. Hygiene factors are like the plumbing in your house. If it breaks, you're deeply unhappy, dissatisfied. But when it's working perfectly, you don't feel actively happy or motivated by it. You just expect it.
So good benefits prevent people from being unhappy, but they don't necessarily make them love their job or work harder.
That's Herzberg's core argument. The absence of decent benefits will cause dissatisfaction, maybe drive people away, but their presence alone doesn't actively spur higher performance or deep job satisfaction in the long run. They prevent unhappiness, but they don't necessarily create passion or drive employees to go the extra mile. Other drawbacks. Some benefits might only be offered to senior staff, causing resentment lower down, and not all employees will value all benefits equally. What's a great perk for one person might be useless to another, meaning wasted resources for the company.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, so if money and perks aren't the whole story, if they're often just hygiene factors, what else can businesses do? What lights that fire beyond the paycheck? It sounds like there's this whole other dimension to motivation, tapping into something deeper.
Precisely. And that brings us squarely into the realm of non-financial methods of motivation. These are incentives that don't involve direct cash payments. Instead, they focus on things like how jobs are designed, the work environment itself, opportunities for personal development, and recognition. They aim to tap into different human needs and desires, moving beyond Maslow's basic physiological and safety needs towards those higher levels: social connection, esteem, and ultimately self-actualization or reaching one's potential.
Why are these non-financial methods so important then?
Well, partly because, as we've discussed, many people simply aren't motivated primarily by money, especially once their basic financial needs are reasonably met. Beyond a certain point, things like personal growth, feeling recognized for your contribution, having a sense of achievement, and finding genuine satisfaction in the work itself become incredibly powerful drivers. Think about the major motivational theories, again, Maslow's hierarchy, Hertzberg's two-factor theory. They both consistently emphasize the critical role of these non-financial rewards for achieving higher levels of motivation and engagement. People want to feel challenged, valued, purposeful. They want to contribute meaningfully. It's about igniting that intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from within, from the enjoyment of the task itself.
Okay, so what are some key examples of these non-financial methods?
One very common one is job rotation. This is the practice of systematically moving employees between different tasks or jobs, usually at a similar level, for set periods. The main goal here isn't necessarily about increasing responsibility, but more about relieving boredom and monotony. It's also about broadening an employee's skill set and just providing more variety in their day-to-day work.
Like the supermarket example you mentioned earlier.
Exactly like that example from the source. The worker rotating between filling online orders, collecting trolleys, working customer service, running the checkout. Instead of doing just one repetitive task all day, every day, they get exposure to different parts of the operation. They learn new things as they go.
What are the benefits of doing that? Seems like it could be disruptive.
It can be, but the benefits can outweigh that if managed well. Firstly, it definitely reduces boredom and monotony. That can significantly boost job satisfaction and help prevent burnout. Secondly, it helps employees develop a wider range of skills, making them more versatile, more adaptable. That increased versatility then benefits the business by creating workforce flexibility. More people can cover different tasks, which is great for efficiency, especially during absences or busy periods. And thirdly, it gives employees a better big-picture understanding of the business. They see how different parts connect, which can foster better teamwork and a more holistic view.
Okay, makes sense. But what are the downsides? You mentioned disruption.
Yes, disruption can be one, but a more direct drawback is often the cost. Job rotation usually involves training costs. As employees move to new tasks, they need to learn how to do them. Our source explicitly states, one possible disadvantage of this method of motivation is that training costs will rise. Another potential issue is a loss of deep specialization. If people are constantly moving, they might not develop really deep expertise in one particular area. They become jacks of all trades, perhaps masters of none. And yes, if not managed smoothly, the constant shifting can be disruptive to workflow, potentially causing temporary dips in efficiency as people get up to speed in each new role.
Okay, so rotation is about variety, broadening skills. What else is there in the non-financial toolkit?
Another really significant method, often seen as more powerful for deep motivation, is job enrichment. Now, this is different from rotation. Job enrichment is about deliberately designing a job to be more inherently challenging, more interesting, and more rewarding. How? By giving the employee more responsibility, greater decision-making authority over their work, and ultimately a stronger sense of achievement from doing the job itself. Hertzberg, as our source notes, specifically identified job enrichment as a positive motivator, meaning it actively boosts job satisfaction and performance. It doesn't just prevent dissatisfaction like a hygiene factor. It's about building mastery and purpose into the role.
So it's about making the job itself more fulfilling.
Exactly. The aim is to provide deeper satisfaction, to encourage skill development that goes beyond just variety, to foster personal growth, to make employees feel genuinely more valued for their intellect and contribution, not just their time or basic skills. It's targeting those higher level needs. Remember the Johanna Jensen example from the source at the Hunning Care Home?
Vaguely, refresh my memory.
Her job was initially described as making her feel bored and unfulfilled. But then it was enriched. She was given more responsibility. She got involved in managing her own post. She even started organizing team meetings.
Right. So she wasn't just doing different tasks. She was given more control and challenge.
Precisely. That's the core of enrichment. More control, more intellectual challenge, more autonomy within her expanded role. She was empowered to make decisions that affected her work and her team.
That sounds much more motivating than just swapping tasks. What are the main advantages of enrichment?
Well, it can dramatically increase motivation by giving employees that sense of control and responsibility, tapping right into their intrinsic drive. It helps develop higher-level skills, promotes significant personal growth, making employees more capable and often more promotable. This typically leads to much greater job satisfaction and a powerful sense of achievement, which, for many people, can be far more rewarding than just a pay rise. And often, it improves the quality of work, because employees feel more invested, they have a sense of ownership over their enriched tasks.
Okay, sounds powerful. But are there downsides to giving people more responsibility?
Yes, there can be. Firstly, it might require significant training and resources. If you give someone new, complex tasks without the right support or training, they might struggle or fail, which is demotivating. Secondly, if it's not managed carefully, it can just feel like an increased workload or added stress rather than a positive challenge. The source actually warns that this could negatively impact labor productivity if people feel overwhelmed.
So the challenge has to be pitched right.
Exactly. It's sometimes called the Goldilocks problem.
Yeah.
The level of challenge and responsibility needs to be just right. Not too easy, boring, not too difficult, overwhelming, but stimulating. And it's important to remember that not all employees actually want more responsibility or more challenging tasks. Some genuinely prefer predictability and lower stress levels. Forcing enrichment on someone who doesn't want it won't work.
That's a fantastic breakdown. Really clarifies things. But I often hear another term used alongside these ideas: autonomy. So what's the actual difference between, say, job rotation and job enrichment? And where does this idea of autonomy fit into the picture? Are they just variations on a theme, or are the distinctions important?
That's a really crucial question to unpack because they are distinct concepts even though they often work together, especially enrichment and autonomy. Let's clarify. First, think of job rotation as being primarily about horizontal movement. It's like moving sideways across different tasks or maybe even departments, but generally at the same level of responsibility or complexity. You're swapping tasks, gaining variety, broadening your skills across different areas of the business. The focus is on breadth, not necessarily depth. Our supermarket worker example fits perfectly. They learn more parts of the store's operation, but the fundamental nature of their responsibility within each task, checking out, stocking shelves, might not change dramatically. It's exposure.
Okay, horizontal movement, variety. Got it.
Then job enrichment is more about vertical movement or deepening the job. It's about adding layers of responsibility, intellectual challenge, decision-making power to an existing role, or perhaps moving into a more complex role altogether. The goal isn't just variety. It's about enabling a greater sense of achievement, personal growth, and feeling like you're making a more significant contribution. Remember Johanna Jensen. She wasn't just doing different tasks. She was given more responsible tasks, managing her post, organizing meetings. It's about empowering the individual within their role.
Right. Vertical movement, adding responsibility and challenge.
Yeah.
So where does autonomy come in?
Okay, autonomy. While our specific source material doesn't treat autonomy as a completely separate motivation method with its own heading, it's a critical concept that's fundamentally intertwined with job enrichment. Think of autonomy as the degree of freedom, independence, and discretion an employee has. Freedom in how they schedule their work, in deciding the procedure or methods they use to complete it, in making decisions related to their tasks. It's about having control. Control over how you do your work and sometimes when or even where you do it.
So autonomy is a key part of enrichment.
Exactly. It's often seen as a core component or a direct, highly desirable outcome of effective job enrichment. When jobs are genuinely enriched, employees are almost always given more responsibility and more challenging tasks, right? Well, that inherently involves granting them a greater degree of autonomy, more control over how they approach and execute their work. This increased decision-making power is a massive psychological motivator. Why? Because people feel trusted, respected, capable when they have autonomy. It makes jobs feel much more intrinsically rewarding because individuals can use their own judgment, their creativity, their problem-solving skills. It fosters that sense of ownership and personal accomplishment. It's the difference between being handed a strict instruction manual versus being given a clear goal and the freedom to figure out the best way to achieve it. Autonomy is often the element that makes enrichment truly empowering and motivating.
Ah, I see. So enrichment adds the responsibility, and autonomy is the freedom to exercise that responsibility.
That's a great way to put it. To summarize the distinction simply, job rotation changes which tasks you do. Horizontal variety. Job enrichment makes your tasks more complex and responsible. Vertical depth challenge. Autonomy, the degree of control and freedom you have over your work. Empowerment, often resulting from enrichment.
That's brilliant, thank you. It really clarifies how these non-financial elements work together. It also helps explain why some jobs just feel more engaging, even if the pay isn't drastically different. So, okay, we've got this whole toolkit now, financial methods like pay rates, bonuses, commission, perks, and then non-financial ones like rotation, enrichment, fostering autonomy. What does this actually mean for businesses trying to apply this stuff in the real world? How do they decide which levers to pull? And does the size of the business, or maybe its culture, change the strategy?
Right. This is where the theory meets practice, and it becomes more of an art, less of a rigid science. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. The decision on which method, or more likely, which combination of methods to use, really depends on a whole mix of factors. What's the specific nature of the job itself? What are the needs and aspirations of the individual employees or the team? Are they focused on basic security, or are they looking for challenge and growth, thinking back to Maslow? And of course, what are the overall strategic goals of the business? What kind of performance or behavior are they trying to encourage?
So it's about matching the tool to the task and the person.
Exactly. Financial incentives, as we said, are often foundational. They address those basic needs, physiological, safety. They can be very effective for jobs with clear, measurable output, especially for driving short-term results. If you desperately need to increase widget production this month, piece rates or production bonus might be highly effective. But once those basic financial needs are reasonably met, or for roles where things like quality, creativity, long-term thinking, and deep engagement are more important than just raw output, well, that's where non-financial methods become absolutely critical. They are essential for fostering that deeper, long-term engagement, for building intrinsic motivation, loyalty, and creating a truly satisfied and productive team that sticks around.
Which brings us back to Hertzberg's idea, the two factors.
Precisely. Hertzberg's two-factor theory, mentioned in the source, is so relevant here. It really helps structure this thinking. Remember, hygiene factors. Things like salary, company policies, working conditions, job security, fringe benefits. Their absence causes dissatisfaction. People will be unhappy without them or if they're poor, but their presence alone doesn't actively motivate or create deep job satisfaction. They just prevent unhappiness. They're the baseline expectations.
The plumbing and electricity?
Exactly. And then you have the motivators. Things like achievement, getting recognized, the work itself being interesting and challenging, having responsibility, opportunities for advancement like promotion or job enrichment. These are the factors that actively increase job satisfaction and motivation. They drive higher performance, real engagement.
The nice view, the great kitchen.
Perfect analogy. So a smart business needs to ensure its hygiene factors are adequate competitive salary, decent conditions, good benefits to stop people being dissatisfied and leaving. But then to truly inspire, engage, and get the best out of people, they need to focus heavily on the motivators. Recognition, challenging work, autonomy, growth opportunities. It's about building that solid foundation first, hygiene, and then adding the features that bring real satisfaction and drive motivators. Too many companies just throw more money, a hygiene factor, at morale problems, but Hertzberg tells us that often won't fix the underlying issue if the motivators are missing. That's a key insight.
That makes so much sense. Now, what about the size of the business? Does that change how they approach motivation?
It often does, yes. Our source material specifically touches on this, comparing large versus small businesses. In small businesses, the owner or manager often has a much more direct personal relationship with employees. They might have a really intuitive grasp of what motivates individuals just through daily interaction and knowing them well.
More gut feeling, less formal systems?
Often, yes. Formal motivational theories might not be explicitly discussed, but the principles might be applied implicitly through close relationships. Frequent informal feedback, maybe more personalized flexibility or recognition. The smaller scale allows for a more agile, personalized touch. A startup, for example, might offer share options, which is a huge motivator linked to collective success, something harder for a giant corporation to replicate in the same way.
And large businesses. How do they cope without that personal touch?
Large businesses, with their complex structures, thousands of employees, maybe multiple locations, it's just impossible for top leaders to have that personal connection with everyone. So they typically rely much more on formal systems. They'll have dedicated human resources departments, structured motivational programs, standardized performance management systems, company-wide incentive schemes. This allows for consistency, fairness, at least in theory, and scalability across a large, diverse workforce. Think of defined salary bands, formal annual appraisals linked to PRP, standardized bonus criteria.
So different approaches to achieve the same goal.
Essentially, yes. Both small and large businesses are trying to find that optimal blend of financial and non-financial methods to motivate their people. The key difference is how they implement and administer these strategies, adapting to their specific scale, resources, culture, and the nature of their employee relationships. It's always about finding the right motivational fit for the context.
That's really insightful. It shows that while the basic human drivers of motivation might be universal, the way businesses tap into them has to be tailored. It really makes you think about why some workplaces just feel better than others. Okay, wow, we have covered a huge amount of ground today. Hopefully, your mental toolkit for understanding motivation is feeling significantly heavier and more useful. Before we wrap up, let's just do a quick mental check-in. Not a stressful test. Think of these more as quick thought experiments, just to help solidify what we've been discussing. Sound good?
Excellent idea. A good way to apply the concepts. Let's try them. Okay, thought experiment 1. Imagine a company is looking at ways to potentially save some money, but they also want to keep staff engaged. They're considering different options. If they were thinking about implementing job rotation, which of the following is generally seen as a direct disadvantage of that specific method? Is it A, training costs are likely to be higher, B, employees may get bored, C, managers' jobs will be at risk, or D, work timetables will be more difficult to prepare?
Okay. Job rotation means moving people around, so they'd need to learn new things.
And the answer is A, training costs are likely to be higher. Remember, job rotation involves employees learning new skills for the different tasks they're moved to. Each move might require some training, guidance, or time to get up to speed, which costs the business time and potentially money for formal training. Option B is the opposite rotation aims to reduce boredom. Options C and D might be indirect consequences if it's managed poorly, but the rise in training costs is a direct inherent downside, often associated with job rotation itself, as the source highlighted.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. Okay, thought experiment 2. Picture a really successful sales team. Their manager wants to reward outstanding performance. What's the correct term for an extra payment, given on top of their basic wage, specifically for hitting a very ambitious sales target for the quarter, or maybe even just for showing great commitment and loyalty over several years?
Would that be A, salary, B, commission, C, bonus, or D, piece rate?
Okay, extra payment. Target or loyalty, not percentage of sales.
And the answer is C, bonus. A bonus fits that description perfectly. It's an additional payment beyond the regular wage or salary, often linked to achieving specific targets like that ambitious sales goal, or used as a reward for service or loyalty. It's distinct from salary, regular pay for time, piece rate, pay per unit, and commission, which is specifically a percentage of sales value. The keys here were in addition to basic wage and for reaching targets or recognition for service.
Perfect. Right, last one. Thought experiment 3. Imagine a CEO reads about motivation theories and wants to boost deeper job satisfaction and help employees develop skills, but maybe without just throwing more money at salaries. They want people to feel more invested, more challenged in their roles. Which of these is a clear example of a non-financial reward they might implement?
Is it A, job enrichment, B, job analysis, C, job description, or D, job specification?
Okay, non-financial, making the job more challenging and interesting.
And the answer is A, job enrichment. As we discussed quite a bit, job enrichment is all about redesigning the job itself to be more challenging, interesting, and rewarding, often by giving more responsibility and autonomy. This directly taps into intrinsic motivation and improves job satisfaction without being a direct financial payment. The other options, job analysis, description, specification. These are important HR tools for defining jobs, but they are motivation methods or rewards in themselves. They describe the job. Enrichment changes it to make it more motivating.
Brilliant. Those examples really help cement the differences. So thinking about everything we've covered today, what really stands out to you about how businesses tackle motivation? And maybe for our listeners, how might understanding all these methods impact your future career choices or how you experience work? Will you be looking mainly for those solid hygiene factors or searching for jobs rich in those true motivators? or perhaps more realistically, seeking a good balance of both.
Reflecting on it, what stands out is the sheer breadth of tools available. We've gone from direct financial carrots like salaries and piece rates and commissions, all the way to these really quite powerful non-financial approaches like job enrichment, autonomy, promotion, and even the important supporting role of fringe benefits. But I think the crucial takeaway really is that effective motivation isn't simple. It's a nuanced art. It demands that businesses genuinely try to understand the diverse needs, desires, and drivers of their workforce. They can't just rely on one tool or just assume money solves everything. To build a truly productive, satisfied, and loyal team, the kind that gives a competitive edge, companies have to thoughtfully combine and tailor these different approaches. It's about creating an environment where people don't just show up to work, but where they can genuinely thrive. And having this understanding, it's incredibly valuable, not just for passing exams, though it certainly helps there, but for actually observing and making sense of the business world around you. You'll be able to look at companies and start to analyze why some seem to buzz with energy and have really engaged employees, while others struggle with high turnover and low morale, even if they pay competitively. You'll realize it often comes down to more than just the numbers on the paycheck. It's about how deeply that company understands, values, and invests in its people, its human capital.
Excellent. And just one final reminder, if you want to dig even deeper into this or explore other fascinating business topics, don't forget to visit www.igce-business.weebly.com. It's packed with great resources to support your learning. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into motivation at work. We genuinely hope this exploration has given you some valuable insights you can apply in your studies, maybe in thinking about your own future career, or even just in being a more informed observer of the businesses you interact with every day. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.